Yahoo News was first to report that DA Fani Willis has sent what are called, quote, target letters to prominent Georgia Republicans, informing them that they, in fact, could be indicted for their roles in that fake electors scheme. The recipients of the target letters include two fake electors, David Schaefer, the chair of the Georgia Republican Party who led the fake electors meeting, and State Senator Burt Jones, who coincidentally is currently Governor Brian Kemp's running mate for lieutenant governor. Also receiving a target letter is a Republican state senator by the name of Brandon Beach, who the Atlanta Journal-Constitution reports was a key intermediary between the Trump campaign and those fake electors. Now, remember that email from the Trump campaign instructing the fake electors to keep the meeting secret? That email said they should pretend they were at the state capitol for a meeting with Senator Beach. Now, it's big news, on all of this. There's so many developments. And it's big news all on its own that some of the biggest names in Georgia Republican politics have been told they could be indicted. But it's also big news because it is a major escalation of this Fulton County investigation. And today, Fani Willis said that she is considering whether to call Donald Trump himself to testify before the grand jury. Joining me now is Gwen Keyes Fleming, former district attorney of DeKalb County, Georgia. Ms. Fleming, it's great to have you with us. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Help us understand this for a moment, the importance of these target letters procedurally, both for DA Willis and for the recipients of these letters. If the kind of special grand jury district attorney Willis has convened does not have power to issue indictments itself, is it unusual that the district attorney's office has sent these target letters to these individuals, warning them that they could be, in fact, indicted?
It's not unusual, and it used to be a very common practice back when the law in Georgia said that any elected official that is being investigated by a special grand jury would have the opportunity to present a sworn statement and not be questioned before the grand jury. The law has changed since then, and so now elected officials are treated like everyone else. But I think in this particular case, the letters may have been sent to clear up any sort of discrepancy as to whether these individuals were now being viewed as targets as opposed to simply as witnesses. And I think Fani may be doing that so that she can ensure that they don't feel ambushed, that they are able to adequately prepare for their testimony, presumably with counsel. And with that counsel, they can make any sort of decisions or recommendations as to how to respond to questions and possibly, if they think it's appropriate, to use the Fifth Amendment to prevent themselves from incriminating themselves.
Do you expect these three individuals to potentially consider pleading the Fifth?
I think that's something that only Fani and the grand jury will know up and until the special grand jury's report is put together at the end of this process.
The reporting on these target letters names three individuals, State Senator Brandon Beach, who I mentioned, and two of Trump's fake electors in Georgia, the Republican Party chair, David Schaefer, and Lieutenant Governor, who's running now for Lieutenant Governor, Burt Jones. Do you have any understanding of whether others have also received target letters? I mean, if not, would you be surprised to learn later that there were, in fact, more beyond these three?
Wouldn't be surprised. Again, remember that Fani has sworn an oath to prosecute or investigate without any fear, favor, or affection. That means that she is going to follow the evidence wherever it leads her. And now it's not just her and her investigation team, but it's also a group of citizens and residents in Fulton County who may have questions that they want answered. And so she's operating on their behalf as well to be able to get some of the answers that they need to write this final report.
The district attorney is considering calling Donald Trump before the special grand jury. Is there any compelling reason not to seek his testimony at this point?
Well, I think I can't think of a non-compelling reason. Again, she has the opportunity. She has the tools. The special grand jury has questions and wants to hear from the former president. She has the tools to be able to present that. I think she certainly knows that making a move like that will no doubt uh, invoke various motions in opposition, and it may extend the process before she can get that testimony. But I'm confident that her and her team are already anticipating those moves, 3 or 4 chess moves ahead, and they are going to do what is necessary to build and vet whatever case they think they may have.
So if that does happen, if that process for compelling grand jury testimony, which we know exists for a president like former Trump outside of the state of Georgia, does play out, do you expect the question of Trump's testimony to become an issue in litigation? I mean, does the DA have enough time to fight a potential legal battle for Trump's testimony before her special grand jury expires?
I think so. The grand jury, again, has been impaneled for a year. They just started all of their work in the spring, so there's still a lot of time left this year. They have a fantastic judge that is managing both the calendar and the substance as well as the law. And so I think that all parties, certainly the judge, Fani and her team, they recognize the timelines and they're going to work diligently to work within them to bring this matter to a conclusion in some way, shape, or form, so she can then have the information that she needs about whether to proceed with charges, and if so, which ones.
One of the Georgia Republicans who received a target letter from DA Willis has filed a motion to disqualify her as head prosecutor. State Senator Burt Jones cited a fundraiser Willis hosted for Jones's Democratic opponent as a reason she and her chief prosecutor on the Trump probe should be disqualified. Does this motion to disqualify DA Willis have any merit in your opinion? Are you surprised to see a move like this?
I'm not surprised. I think obviously Fani and her team, they've spoken about it. They have indicated that she has no personal bias against the senator. And she, again, is following the evidence that has been put before her. I anticipate she will also argue that because of that, it does not rise to the level warranting her disqualification. This is not a situation where the senator is the only target. We talked about the several individuals that are being treated or asked to appear before the grand jury. So this is not a selective prosecution. It's not just him by himself. And I believe she'll argue that he has testimony that is relevant to her ability to investigate this case, consistent with the oath that she took.